My entitled sister wants to adopt my unborn baby and older kids even though she always hated them. My narcissistic parents called CPS when I refused. When I was 16, I was sexually active with my boyfriend and I accidentally got pregnant. I was very scared to tell my parents, but I was a dumb 16-year-old and didn't know how to hide a pregnancy. It became apparent from the morning sickness and early symptoms of pregnancy I was experiencing. My mom became suspicious and asked me to take a pregnancy test, which obviously came back positive. They were awful to me and said I was not raising a child under their roof, so they kicked me out. I lost all contact with my entire family and they took away all my possessions. I turned to a shelter for help and I lived there long enough to give birth to my baby and raise him. Though it was tough, at least it meant we all had a place to live. At 21, I managed to get into university and thought this was finally what I needed. But then I started dating some guy. I don't know what I was thinking because the last thing I needed was another person in my life. And the worst part was he wasn't even good to me. In just 2 months, he started hitting me and threatening to unalive my kids whenever I canceled plans with him to take care of my children. One night, we finally had time for each other and he wanted to have intimacy. I was hesitant because the last 2 times I slept with someone didn't turn out well. But he said I owed it to him for always bailing on him. So, we had intimacy and I got pregnant once again. I didn't want this child to end up with a father like him, so I broke up with him and he agreed to give me sole custody. So I had 3 kids by the age of 23. Despite this, I'm actually in a good position. I balanced university along with college and saved everything I could. Eventually, I managed to put down a down payment on a small house. I felt ready to start dating again and I was with my partner for 8 months before he broke up with me. Last Christmas. He had gotten me pregnant and when I told him, he broke up with me on the spot. He was adamant on not staying with me and while I was hurt by his decision, I can afford to bring another person into the house, so this is happening with or without him. Recently, my sister and parents reached out to me because they saw the errors of their ways and want to reconnect. I was really skeptical about it, especially since I haven't forgiven my parents for kicking me out, but my sister and I managed to somewhat rebuild our relationship. I thought it was safe enough to tell them I was pregnant again after speaking to them for some time. Looking back on it, I wish I had never let them back into my life, let alone say anything. They reacted badly to the news. My parents threw my first pregnancy back in my face, saying I needed to learn to keep my legs closed and this is why I was kicked out at 16. My sister called me an idiot and sarcastically asked if I ever got tired of pushing out a crap load of babies. I was very offended by their comments and the pregnancy hormones didn't make anything better. I bawled my eyes out constantly and it really felt like I was 16 years old again. My sister called me days after telling me all of that to say she did think the pregnancy was a good idea. I was shocked at first and didn't consider she had any ulterior motives. But the conversation got worse as she talked. She mentioned that she's married, owns her house, and she's planning on having kids with her husband soon. I didn't know where she was going with this since I already knew all of those things. Then, out of the blue, she dropped the biggest bombshell on me. She wants to adopt my unborn baby. Her argument was that she could provide a better life for my kid. I was struggling with the others and didn't need one more on my plate. I was firm on saying no, this is my kid. Though she stuck to her decision and asked if I was hesitating because we would have to split the kids up. That wasn't why, but she gave a solution for that too. She would be willing to take them along too. So now she wanted to love my kids after calling them mistakes multiple times to my face and looking down on me for my various pregnancies. I let her know I would never agree to any of that and she called me selfish and narcissistic for not letting her take my kids. I was floored. I called her crazy and blocked her. Later that night, I got a call from my parents and I knew I shouldn't have answered, but I still did. Immediately, my mom was shouting at me, asking why I was so rude to my sister. When I tried to defend myself, they basically listed off her arguments again and agreed that she and her husband are the far better option for my children. I responded that they never even cared for my children and up until 2 months ago, I was disowned. I didn't even know why they reached out in the first place, but it was so obvious now. I told them that if my sister wanted to have kids, then she should birth them like I did and stop trying to take mine. Until then, they could rot for all I care. They did not take my words lightly and are now threatening to call child services. While I would pass a check without issues, having a file on me could cause problems with both work and uni as my studies and career require me being able to be around children. They are also posting on social media claiming that I'm abusing my kids and that I said I'd let my sister adopt my baby and have now changed my mind. My sister called me through my parents' phone since she's still blocked and told me that she was getting my kids, one way or another, and then hung up. She sounded serious and that scared me. What exactly does that mean?